Good morning. For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas. We go to Ferguson, Missouri, where on Monday night, after firing tear gas and stun grenades at protesters, police say they came under heavy fire. State Highway Patrol Captain Ron Johnson says that no bullets were fired by officers. Police arrested 31 people and confiscated 2 guns. The standoff between police and local protesters and residents now enters its 2nd week after an unarmed teenager was shot and killed by police on August 9th. An autopsy released on Sunday reveals that 18-year-old Michael Brown was shot 6 times. The black teen was shot and killed by a 28-year-old white police officer. Missouri Governor Jay Nixon deployed the National Guard on Monday in an attempt to restore order. Talks continue in Cairo, Egypt, after the ceasefire between Hamas and Israel was extended until midnight Tuesday. Israeli troops remain deployed at the border. It remains unclear whether the two sides are close to reaching an agreement. Al Jazeera had reported that Palestinian sources told them that the ceasefire agreement being discussed would include the opening of border crossings in coordination with the Palestinian Authority. Their sources also indicated that the current agreement would include the international transfer of building material to rebuild the destroyed zones, a larger fishing zone, and the possibility of building a Gaza port. But Israeli newspaper Haaretz reports that the head of the Palestinian negotiations team in Cairo, Azam Ahmed, says that no real progress has been made, accusing Israel of maneuvering and stalling. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met with Palestinian chief negotiator Saeb Erekat on Tuesday to discuss the peace efforts between Palestine and Israel. Lavrov says the goal must be to launch an all-encompassing resolution of the Palestine-Israeli conflict. He says Russia will actively try to reach that goal. Lavrov encourages both sides to reach a long-term ceasefire. Since 2006, when Hamas won Palestinian elections, the Israeli and Egyptian governments have closed their border crossing with Gaza. Israel has prevented ships from loading in the Strip. Officials at the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees warn that Gazans may not see quality of life improvements for at least 15 years if the blockade on Gaza continues.
But I don't think anybody has an answer to that right now because, first of all, it needs a consolidated cessation of hostilities to be able to practically think about what that would be done, because for the moment we're not even sure that we don't go back to conflict. So right now the question mark is very big. Then if there were a consolidated ceasefire, the question would be, is it a ceasefire that brings us simply back to the pre-existing conditions under the blockade? If that is the case, it will take years and years and years to rebuild, because the rhythm of importation of material that we had seen previously is so slow, submitted to so many conditions, that with the extent of destruction that has taken place now, you can really not imagine that we would achieve anything before 15 years or more if it's at that rhythm.
The leader of the self-proclaimed People's Republic of Donetsk, Alexander Zajarchenko, says he is willing to negotiate with the Ukrainian government as long as the talks are on equal terms. Zajarchenko told Russian news agency RIA Novosti that he has always been open to talks. He also says that the militias will never lay down their arms, and says that the new state of the People's Republic of Donetsk must be recognized. According to the Ukrainian Foreign Affairs Minister, a ceasefire would require 3 things. Among those are that the border with Russia is completely safe, that the ceasefire be observed everywhere, even along the border, and that all groups release those detained, and that there are no attempts to capture new hostages. Pakistani opposition leader Imran Khan will lead supporters in demonstrations today in Pakistan's capital. They will demand the Prime Minister's resignation. Khan's party announced on Monday that it would resign from its seats in Parliament, while it called for massive demonstrations in Islamabad to unseat the current government. Khan has accused Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif of vote rigging in last year's election. He has also called on Pakistanis to stop paying taxes and utility bills as a form of mass civil disobedience. Khan calls on demonstrators to march on the capital's red zone, which is currently being protected by thousands of riot police and soldiers. And to Latin America now. The presidential election campaign officially begins in Brazil this week. Current President Dilma Rousseff hopes to earn re-election. Ecologist Marina Silva could be her biggest threat. Silva previously served as a minister in the government of former President Lula da Silva. After the death of socialist Eduardo Campos, Silva has surged in the polls, taking the second spot. A poll published Monday showed President Rousseff leading her rivals with 36% of the vote and Marina Silva with 21%, closely followed by Aécio Neves with 20%.
Reforço aqui meu compromisso.
In Venezuela, the fight against crime is showing improvement, with new figures revealing kidnapped rates dropping. Our correspondent Rachel Boothroyd has more on the efforts to keep the streets of Venezuela safe.
Often referred to as the kidnapping capital of the world, Venezuela has been a constant focus of media attention over the last decade for its high rates of kidnapping and homicide. Yet this week appeared to mark a positive change in the headlines, as the government reported a 52.3% decrease in kidnappings and a 21.2% drop in homicides since the year began.
You can be sure that we will be working, managing and supervising every single day. The security system that we are implementing hand in hand with the President and under the instruction of the President, so that within 4 years we have notably and structurally reduced the level of crime in Venezuela.
The government says that the reduction can be attributed to its Safe Homeland Security Plan, launched in 2013 by Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro in an attempt to stem the country's violent crime rate. The plan has seen thousands of soldiers deployed across the capital and other cities, where they've set up mobile security points in some of the country's main crime hotspots.
Around here, there used to be a lot of thieves who made the zone pretty dangerous, but since the patrol got here, that settled down and cases of robbery have gone down.
Yet in a country which saw over 5,000 citizens murdered and disappeared by security forces between 1958 and 1998, the Maduro government is keen to distance itself from previous regimes, which adopted a hardline approach to security. Instead, the new security policies have tried to prioritise citizen participation, although winning over citizens' trust continues to be a challenge.
It's been good and bad, really. Firstly, good because the security patrol has been pretty attentive to us, but bad because they are being a nuisance over licenses and stuff like that. But yeah, there's been an improvement. You can feel an improvement in the atmosphere.
Although the authorities say that there is still much to be done, they cite these latest figures as a small indication that they are beginning to win the war against violent crime in Venezuela. Rachel Boothroyd, Telesur, Caracas, Venezuela.
And thanks to Rachel. Pope Francis says the international community is justified in stopping Islamic militants in Iraq. The comments came when the Pope returned from his trip to South Korea. Pope Francis says that when there is an unjust aggression, it is legitimate to stop the unjust aggressor. He also added that it should not be up to a single nation to decide how to intervene in the conflict. Francis even offered to go to the area and negotiate a ceasefire between the jihadist rebels and the Kurdish forces. The World Health Organization has urged a screening of all people at international airports, seaports, and major land crossings in an effort to stop the spread of Ebola. Authorities are asking officials to stop anyone with signs of the virus from traveling. They warn that the virus has been vastly underestimated. Stats show the risk of being infected with the virus is small, meaning there is no need for wider travel or trade restrictions. Following the recommendations, Cameroon closed all of its land, sea, and air borders with Nigeria. Also, Latin American nations are preparing to take action with airport screenings and special Ebola quarantine hospitals. In Argentina, the Ministry of Health has already marked some hospitals as Ebola only. Other countries like Chile, Uruguay, Ecuador, Venezuela, Honduras, and Panama have also made plans to contain the possible spread of Ebola. In Liberia, at least 17 Ebola patients are still missing after a large group of people charged a hospital treating the patients because they believe the virus is a conspiracy. The head of the Health Workers Association of Liberia, George Williams, says that the authorities are still looking for 17 patients. They located some of the 30 who escaped. Liberia's information minister, Louis Brown, calls the event a big setback in the country's fight against Ebola. To sports, former U.S. Open champion Rafael Nadal won't be able to defend his title this year due to a wrist injury. In an announcement, Nadal says he's very sorry he won't be able to play at this year's U.S. Open. The number 2 ranked player has won 14 Grand Slam tournaments but has not played since his surprising defeat at Wimbledon's quarterfinals. Nadal won the U.S. Open twice in 2010 and in 2013. U.S. Open tournament officials lamented Nadal's absence through a message published on Twitter saying they will miss him and sending him best wishes. Nadal has already missed 2 other tournaments due to the injury, the Toronto's Masters 1000 and the Cincinnati tournament. The Tango World Cup began on Monday in Buenos Aires with a record attendance of foreign couples. A total of 574 couples from 37 countries began dancing to make their way through the qualifying rounds of the 12th edition of the event. The competition has 2 categories: Tango Salon, in which the juries rate the traditional tango dancing skills of elegance and creativity, and Tango Scenario, in which the juries rate on-stage features of each couple's, like performance, dressing, spectacular choreographies. The final event will take place at the Luna Park Stadium on August 25th and 26th. Along with the activities in Buenos Aires, another 12 headquarters around the world, including France, Germany, and South Korea, are hosting activities for this edition of the International Tango World Championship. More on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. Hope you have a great day.